The human tiny Whoopsie. In the vast expanse of the universe, stars were more than just burning balls of gas. To the civilizations scattered across the galaxy, stars were the lifeblood of entire systems. They were power sources, homes to civilizations, and at the center of every thriving community in space. Building anything around a star, whether it be massive space stations, energy collectors, or planetary colonies, was considered one of the most sacred and delicate undertakings in the galaxy. Humanity, however, approached this task with a reckless kind of optimism, armed with ambition, invention, and a phrase that would come to haunt the galaxy: whoops. At first, the other galactic races viewed the humans as an oddity, primitive, eager to explore, but still decades behind the more seasoned species in technology and diplomacy. They were aggressive in their pursuit of knowledge, often jumping headfirst into ventures that others would consider far too dangerous or absurd. But what the galaxy didn't realize was that humans had a distinct ability to adapt. They didn't simply learn from their mistakes. They improved on their failures, and with each whoops, their inventions grew exponentially more advanced. It wasn't that humans were more intelligent. In fact, their scientific achievements often came with hefty price tags, failed prototypes, ruined colonies, and disasters that sent shockwaves across systems. Yet there was something undeniably magnetic about them. Their spirit, their unwillingness to be intimidated by the vast unknown, made them a force to be reckoned with. One of their most ambitious projects involved the construction of a Dyson Sphere, a monumental feat designed to harness the full energy of a sun while creating a habitat for billions. It was the project of a lifetime, the culmination of decades of human engineering prowess, and it would make humanity the envy of the galaxy. At least, that was the plan. The project was in its final stages when the mistake was made. The project. Jack Swenson stood at the heart of the project, a leader in human space engineering, respected among his peers, but always chasing that next great idea. A project of such magnitude required a team, and Jack's was one of the most ambitious groups in the universe. They weren't just building any ordinary space station or energy collector. No, they were constructing a Dyson Sphere around a sun, a structure so large it would dwarf anything previously attempted in the galaxy. It would be a marvel, a testament to humanity's ingenuity. The project was nearing completion when the tiny whoopsie occurred. "I just need one more week to get the final simulations done," Jack said over the comm to Vera, his right-hand engineer. She was responsible for much of the core design, ensuring that every component was perfect. She had overseen the structural integrity of the entire Dyson Sphere. "I thought everything was clear," Jack continued. "We've been over the calculations." "We've been over them 1,000 times," Vera replied, her voice sounding strained. "But I'm seeing something here that's strange. One of the stress calculations in the core support system is off. We might be pushing too much weight into orbit, Jack, if the strain isn't accounted for correctly." "Tell me you're not saying what I think you are," Jack interrupted. The very idea made him feel nauseous. It's minor, Jack," Vera continued, her tone more cautious now. "A tiny error, a miscalculation. Nothing catastrophic, but if we don't correct it now, it could have consequences we can't predict." Jack rubbed his temples. "How much time do we have?" "I can't be sure, but I'm going to run a few more simulations," Vera responded. "If we get this wrong, the support system could fail." Jack sighed. "Get it fixed, Vera. We don't have time to waste. I'll be there in 10. The catastrophic whoopsie." It was at that moment, the moment of that tiny error, that the galaxy's fate took a dark turn. The miscalculation wasn't noticeable at first. On the surface, everything looked fine. The Dyson Sphere continued to be built, and the star itself, once humming with energy, appeared stable. But as the structure neared completion, the extra strain began to add up. Every passing minute, the mass of the sphere pulled on the sun in ways that hadn't been accounted for. When the catastrophic failure occurred, it was almost too late for Jack and his team to comprehend what was happening. The moment the core support system gave way, the entire structure collapsed into the heart of the sun. The star, already on the verge of overcompensating for the unnatural mass around it, could not handle the sudden influx of added material, and in a terrible chain reaction, the star began to collapse in on itself. Jack was in the control room when the first warning signs appeared. A ripple in the fabric of the sun's energy, a slight tremor in the surrounding space. At first, it was imperceptible, just a strange fluctuation. Then the alarms began to blare. Jack, Vera's voice came through the comms, panicked. The sun, it's destabilizing. Before Jack could respond, the massive display screens in the command center began flashing with terrifying data. The sun was now overloaded, its energy output increasing uncontrollably. The Dyson Sphere's collapse had begun a chain reaction. Energy was being released at an unimaginable rate. "Get out of there," Vera shouted. "Now." But Jack didn't move. His eyes were glued to the screens, watching as the star slowly turned into something it was never supposed to be, something unnatural. The mass. "It's forming a singularity," Jack muttered under his breath. "What?" "A black hole." Vera's voice cracked with fear. "Yes, the entire system, everything we've built, is about to disappear. The black hole forms." Within minutes, Jack and his team realized that the damage was beyond repair. The sun wasn't just going nova. It was turning into a black hole, and nothing, not even their ships, could escape the gravitational pull once it formed. They had miscalculated one small piece of the puzzle, one tiny fraction, and the result was that the entire star system, their home, was about to be swallowed by the singularity. The massive data screens in front of Jack displayed the horrifying sight. The star was collapsing in on itself, the black hole's event horizon expanding with each passing second. "Is the system? Is it gone?" Jack asked, his voice barely a whisper. The words seemed impossible to comprehend. "We have minutes," Vera said. "We need to evacuate now." Jack shook his head, disbelief clouding his thoughts. "We've lost everything. The star system, the habitats, our families, everything. The tiny Whoopsie." And just like that, in a small moment, humanity's greatest achievement had turned into its greatest disaster. The miscalculation that had seemed so minor, just a tiny misstep, had led to the destruction of an entire star system. It wasn't just a mistake anymore. It was a tiny Whoopsie, and the consequences had escalated far beyond what anyone could have predicted. A whole system, planets, satellites, homes, billions of lives, was gone, swallowed by the black hole. As Jack made his way to the emergency shuttle, his mind raced. What could they have done differently? What if they had caught the mistake earlier? Could they have stopped it? But it was too late for regrets. The entire system had disappeared, and humanity had once again proven just how far their daring, reckless pursuit of progress could lead them. The aftermath of the Whoopsie. Jack Swenson floated in the evacuation capsule, his mind still reeling from the events that had unfolded mere hours ago. The black hole had formed, and with it, the entire star system had been consumed. The massive Dyson Sphere they had worked on for decades, gone. The sun, once a glowing powerhouse, had collapsed in on itself, leaving nothing but the inky void of a black hole. It was the kind of mistake that echoed across the galaxy, and Jack knew that this would not just be a mark on their records. It would be a scar on humanity's reputation for generations to come. The escape pod was small, cramped with just enough space for a handful of crew members. Vera, Jack's second-in-command, sat across from him, staring out the small viewport. The darkness outside was all-encompassing. No stars, no sun, just the black void where once a thriving star system had existed. The eerie silence inside the pod matched the haunting emptiness of space. "Did we really do this?" Vera's voice was barely a whisper, a mixture of disbelief and anger. Did we really cause this? Jack didn't respond immediately. What could he say? They had miscalculated one number, and the consequence was that an entire star system was now gone. He had heard of mistakes before, but this was unimaginable. The destruction of an entire solar system. It wasn't even a possibility anyone had considered. A small error, a tiny whoopsie, and the universe had been irrevocably altered. People are going to remember this, Jack finally said. His voice was steady, but the weight of it was palpable. For a long time. The fateful call. As the pod glided through the darkened expanse of space, the crew attempted to regroup. The immediate concern was survival, but Jack knew that their survival was just the first of many hurdles they would have to face. The first piece of the puzzle fell into place when Vera activated the comms, reaching out to the nearest fleet of human ships, hoping for help. "We need to get in contact with someone," Vera said, tapping at the comm system. "I need to report this." A low hum emanated from the pod's communication system, and soon a voice came through. Distorted at first, but then clearer. "This is Fleet Command. How may I assist?" "Fleet Command. This is Jack Swenson, lead contractor of the Dyson Sphere project. I'm calling in from an emergency evacuation pod. The star system is gone. The Dyson Sphere collapse led to the formation of a black hole. The entire system is now sucked into it." The voice on the other end paused for a moment before responding. "Repeat, Contractor Swenson. Did you say a black hole? Is this a joke?" Jack clenched his fists. "It's no joke. The system is gone. The entire thing. The sun collapsed into a black hole. The Dyson Sphere fell into it, and the rest of the system's mass followed." The silence on the other end grew longer. Jack could almost hear the disbelief radiating through the comms. "This can't be right. You're saying the sun, planets, everything, gone?" "Yes," Jack replied, his voice thick with regret. "Gone. Every single thing we built, every life that lived in that system, gone." Another long pause followed. Finally, Fleet Command spoke again. "Understood, Contractor Swenson. We'll begin coordinating a recovery mission. Stay where you are. Reinforcements are on the way." Jack didn't know how much reassurance he felt from those words. He didn't even know if there was any system left to recover. The black hole had consumed everything, and the damage wasn't just physical. What would this mean for humanity? What would the other species in the galaxy think when they learned what had happened? The scale of the disaster. As they moved further from the black hole, the pod's sensors picked up strange signals. The pod was flying just outside the event horizon of the black hole, but something felt off. The surrounding space was eerily silent, almost as if the universe itself had stopped in response to what had occurred. Jack couldn't escape the feeling that this event was not just a human failure, it had been a universal one. The repercussions of the tiny whoopsie had already begun to ripple outward. Not only had a star system disappeared, but who knew how much space-time had been altered? Black holes weren't just a threat to the immediate vicinity, they warped reality. They had the power to twist time and space, and who knew how far those distortions might travel? "Vera, what are we picking up?" Jack asked, his voice sharp now. His concern was growing. Vera's fingers hovered over the controls. "There's an anomaly," she said, her voice strained. "A disturbance. Something isn't right." She zoomed in on the readings. The pod's instruments showed bizarre fluctuations, signals, pulses, something on the edges of the black hole's event horizon. It looked almost like a wormhole. "Impossible," Vera muttered. "It can't be a wormhole, not this close to a black hole. The gravitational forces, but these signals are. They're not consistent with a black hole's readings." Jack stood up and moved to her side. The data wasn't just odd, it was wrong. There was something else out there. Something connected to the black hole, something beyond their understanding. Could it be? Jack started, not finishing his thought. If it was true, if that wormhole-like distortion was linked to the black hole's collapse, They could be in more danger than they had ever imagined. Before he could ask more questions, the pod's alarms blared. "Jack, something's coming in on the readings," Vera shouted. The pod shook violently as an immense force swept through the surrounding space. The wormhole had opened wider, pulling at the very fabric of space-time. And then, without warning, a massive flash of light, followed by an intense gravitational pulse, sent the pod into free spin. "Hold on," Jack shouted, bracing himself against the sudden force. They were caught in the pull of something unknown, entering the unknown. The pod spun wildly, tumbling toward the event horizon, pulled by the unknown force of the wormhole. Jack clung to the seat, heart pounding, as the space around them bent and warped in strange, terrifying ways. Lights flickered on the pod's control panel as the hull groaned under the pressure. The gravitational force pulling them in seemed impossible, far stronger than the black hole's original collapse. "Vera," Jack shouted over the howling noise in the cabin. "What's happening? Can you stabilize the pod?" "I'm trying," she yelled back, frantically pressing buttons, but the pod's systems were failing faster than she could control. "The gravitational pull. It's too much. We're being sucked in." Just as Jack thought they were lost, the pod shot forward, far faster than they had ever anticipated. They were being pulled through the wormhole, hurling through an expanse of unknown space. For a moment, everything went black, the heart of the unknown. When the pod finally came to a stop, it was as if time had frozen. Jack and Vera sat in stunned silence, the eerie stillness around them pressing in on all sides. The violent shaking had ceased. The relentless pull of the wormhole had eased. They were alive, yes, but what was the cost? Where were they? Jack slowly unbuckled his seatbelt, his hands shaking. He hadn't realized how tightly his body had been braced during the chaotic spin through the wormhole. Vera was already at the controls, her fingers dancing across the console as she tried to get a read on their new environment. "I'm not seeing any signs of life," Vera muttered, eyes fixed on the sensors. No signals, no space stations, nothing familiar. Jack wiped his face with one hand, his mind racing. What exactly did we just do? We should have been ripped apart by the forces of that black hole. I don't understand. How are we still alive? Vera's eyes were wide, her breath quickening. "I don't know. This doesn't make any sense. We shouldn't have come out of that. It should have destroyed everything around us." Jack frowned. Something wasn't right. There was a deep sense of unease gnawing at him. Something felt off about the entire situation. He stared out the viewport, expecting to see something familiar, maybe a distant planet, a moon, even a fragment of the star system they had destroyed. But what he saw was nothing like that. The space around them was pure emptiness. And yet, there was something distant on the edge of the horizon. A faint glow. It was soft, but unmistakable. A faint blue light shimmering in the distance. "What the hell is that?" Jack whispered. "Vera, get a closer look. It looks like a planet." Vera nodded, her hands shaking slightly as she adjusted the ship's trajectory toward the distant glow. As they drew nearer, the shape of the planet began to take form. It was a colossal, pulsating sphere, swirling with deep blue and green hues. But what struck Jack the most wasn't the planet's size or beauty. It was the feeling it gave him. A sense of being watched, like the planet was alive, observing their every move. No way," Vera murmured, her voice barely audible. This isn't a normal planet. This is something else." Jack leaned closer to the console. "What do you mean?" Vera didn't take her eyes off the planet, but her fingers hesitated above the controls. "There's something strange about the way it's emitting energy. It's like it's alive. It's sending signals. There are electromagnetic pulses coming from it, but they're not like anything we've ever seen before. It's like the planet is communicating." Jack felt a cold shiver run down his spine. They were no longer in their universe. Something was terribly wrong. The laws of physics, the familiar concepts of space and time, they didn't apply here. This place was different. "Should we approach?" Jack asked, his voice strained with uncertainty. Vera didn't hesitate. "We don't have much of a choice. We need answers, Jack. And that planet, it's the only thing in sight." The alien world. As they neared the planet, the entire environment around them shifted. The stars they had seen in the wormhole before were gone. Instead, the area surrounding the planet was cloaked in an unnatural, glowing mist. The space itself seemed to bend and distort, creating swirling patterns of energy that stretched and twisted like living tendrils. Jack's heart raced as the pod moved closer, every instinct telling him to turn around and flee. But the planet's pull, its strange, magnetic force, was undeniable. He couldn't explain why, but he knew that they had to land. "There's something wrong about all of this," Jack murmured, more to himself than to Vera. "This place isn't just strange, it feels ancient, like it's been here longer than we can imagine. We're not just dealing with a new world, we're dealing with something otherworldly." Vera nodded, eyes wide, her voice shaky. "Jack, I'm scared. I've never felt anything like this before." "You're not alone," Jack replied, his eyes narrowing on the planet below. "But we need to land. If we don't figure this out, we could be stuck here forever." The pod descended through the mist, the faint glow of the planet growing brighter, until the pod touched down on its surface. The ground felt solid beneath them, no shaking, no quaking, just a smooth, seemingly endless plane of strange, reflective material that gleamed in the dim light. It wasn't like anything they had encountered before. The ground itself seemed to pulse in rhythm with the energy around it. They unstrapped themselves from their seats, taking in the alien landscape outside. The sky above them was a deep, swirling indigo, with patches of bright light that moved like floating patterns of energy. There were no stars, no familiar constellations, just the pulsing energy of the planet and the strange mist that surrounded them. "Okay," Vera said, her voice barely a whisper. "What do we do now?" Jack hesitated for a moment, then slowly opened the pod's hatch. As the airlock hissed, the stifling atmosphere inside the pod was replaced by the soft, cool air of the alien world. It smelled faintly of ozone, but there was something else. Something metallic, almost organic, like the world itself was alive and breathing. Jack stepped out first, his boots crunching softly on the ground as he surveyed their surroundings. In the distance, he could see a massive structure rising from the surface, an enormous monolithic tower made of the same reflective material. It seemed to hum with energy, as though it was the heart of this strange world. "We need to check that out," Jack said, nodding toward the tower. "There has to be some kind of answers there." They moved cautiously toward the structure, the strange pulses of energy in the air growing stronger the closer they got. The ground beneath them seemed to shift, as if the planet itself was alive, reacting to their presence. Every step they took felt like a ripple in the fabric of reality itself. As they reached the tower, Jack placed a hand on its surface. The moment his fingers made contact, the world around them seemed to shift. The air grew thick with energy, and a strange resonant sound filled the air. It was almost like a voice, deep and vibrating, but too alien to understand. "Did you hear that?" Vera asked, her voice filled with awe. Jack nodded, stepping closer. "Yeah, I think the planet's trying to communicate." Before he could say more, the tower before them seemed to respond. A panel of the structure slid open, revealing a vast chamber within. And at the heart of the chamber, floating in midair, was a crystal, a massive, pulsating energy source that seemed to draw power from the very core of the planet. The crystal shimmered with an unnatural light. It felt alive. No, not just alive, but aware, as if it had been waiting for them. Jack and Vera exchanged nervous glances. They had entered the heart of the unknown, and whatever they were about to encounter, it wasn't going to be anything they could have predicted. The awakening. Just as Jack stepped closer to the crystal, a deep, resounding voice boomed from the depths of the structure. It was not a voice they could understand, but the power behind it was undeniable. The energy in the air seemed to pulse faster, like a heartbeat. "Jack, it feels like the planet is alive," Vera said, fear evident in her voice. "I know," Jack replied, his throat tight. "And I think it's finally waking up." The planet itself began to hum with a frequency that reverberated through their bones, and the crystal's glow intensified. Suddenly, Jack understood. They weren't just visitors here. They had awoken something ancient, something that had been waiting for millennia. The question was no longer what they would find. It was whether they would survive it.